well-being. Today's podcast is a final episode in the series Freedom Loss Living in an Illusion. My quest was to educate as many people as possible on how we are trapped since our birth, and we continue to live our lives as prisoners. Today, we'll explore the impact of our survival mechanism and the self on our health and well-being. The topic for today's podcast is the war within, impact on our health and well-being. As you may recall, these two mechanisms control all activities within us. Our survival mechanism directly controls both our input and output channels and our body. Input channels refers to all the five senses through which we gather data: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body sensations. Our output channels include communication modes such as spoken and written language, sound, and body language. Understanding these mechanisms and how they function is essential for a healthy and balanced life. There are three widely recognized survival techniques known as fight, flight, or freeze that can also be applied to humans. Without even realizing it, we often rely on them in our daily lives. In the past, these methods helped protect us from predators like wild animals. However, nowadays, they are more commonly used to defend ourselves from fellow human beings. Despite human beings deemed intelligent and capable of reasoning and logical thinking, our emotions can often override our abilities. No amount of intelligence, logic, and reason can overthrow the emotional force. The game goes on. The question is, who is playing the game and with whom? Who are the onlookers? Every child is their parents' goal, but they may not realize that they play a significant role in shaping their fate. As I discussed in a previous podcast about decision making and destiny, parental influence is a crucial factor in determining our future. This means that our parents unknowingly bear responsibility for our overall health and well-being. A skilled carpenter possesses knowledge of wood and necessary skill sets to design and construct various types of furniture. When building an item such as a chair, a carpenter carefully plans the type of wood to be used, taking into account its durability and ability to withstand the weight of someone sitting on it. All this planning happens prior to the start of the project. During the chair making process, the carpenter's intention, beliefs, and thought process play a crucial role depending on the desired outcome. The carpenter's thought become aligned and guide the execution of the job. The carpenter's beliefs ultimately determines the future of the chair, sets the precedent for how well it will perform in the future. The design of the chair is carpenter's vision, fulfilling the intended purpose. Its strength and durability depends on the carpenter's beliefs and the thought process. The carpenter puts both physical energy and mental focus into meeting the specific outcome, and the chair's strength and durability are determined by his overall thought process about the desired outcome. When it comes to human child, we can compare it to a carpenter's designing a chair. Just like a chair, every child is the goal of the parents. The parents have the potential and skills to create another human who will fulfill their desired outcome. The birth of a child is based on the intentions, beliefs, and the thought processes of the parents, which decides the child's future. The parents' beliefs have a significant impact on the child's future and serve as a guiding force. Their vision determines the child's strength, health, well-being in the future. Since every child is the result of their thought energy, they will grow and develop accordingly. However, a child's future may change as they mature into adulthood and want to live their lives as they desire. That would conflict with the Creator's goal and lead to self-sabotage. You can refer to the earlier episodes on self-sabotage. As mentioned in the previous podcast, a young entrepreneur named Bipin purchased a 10-ton capacity truck and hired a driver to operate it. In an effort to recover his investment and pay off debt, Bipin instructs the driver to carry up to 15 tons of load to increase profits. In this case, is it possible for the driver to question the owner's motive? The answer is no. The driver is obligated to follow the owner's instruction without argument. However, what will happen to the truck's wear and tear over time? Our body relies on two mechanisms for its functioning: the survival mechanism and the self. The survival mechanism is like a driver, while the self is like an owner. The driver must obey the owner and meet the needs without questioning the authority. Similarly, the survival mechanism cannot challenge the creator of the body. It must meet the demands of the self. If not, it will have to find ways to escape the situation. When the self demands that the survival mechanism meets its needs, it does so without questioning its intentions. However, if the self demands that the survival mechanism prioritizes return on investment and push the body beyond its limits, how long can the body maintain good health? What will be the long-term effects on the body's well-being? You remember Jimmy in my earlier podcast. He had a strict teacher who insisted that all homework be completed on time. However, Jimmy is more inclined towards play and forgets to do the assignment. The following day, the weight of unfinished homework dawns on him. During breakfast, a wave of nausea hits him, leading to vomiting bouts. You may call it luck, but it grants him an escape. This event salvages him from attending school, thanks to his body's survival mechanism stepping in to rescue Jimmy from his predicaments. This incident plants a seed, a potential pattern for the future. When confronted with challenges, a peculiar sensation of nausea triggers in Jimmy, causing him to vomit. Thus, the survival mechanism helps him find way out of adversity. Neil, a client in his late 20s, sought my help because he was going through depression. When he was in the second grade, he met with an accident and ended up with a broken leg. He could not attend school for almost 3 months. Neil was thin and short in stature, and the older students would bully and tease him. Additionally, his class teacher would complain to his parents through his cousin, who also attended the same school. Hearing his complaints, his mother would shout and punish him. The bullying persisted for days, and he didn't know how to handle it, nor could he seek advice and support from anyone. He was feeling lonely, helpless, and depressed, and the incident gave him some relief for some time. A similar situation reoccurred in his ninth grade. Neil was excelling at school, but there were 2 new student bullies who joined his class, isolated him from others, and made his life miserable. Again, he was helpless and depressed and did not know how to deal with the bullies. This time, he ended up with a fractured wrist on his right hand. When he was doing his post-graduation, he had to do some projects with other seniors. There, he had to face other bullies, and he went into a depression for almost 3 months and started losing hair on his head, and doctors labeled it as alopecia. Even though Neil was excellent at his job, he usually had issues with the seniors and did not know how to deal with them. Currently, he was going through a similar situation, making him feel helpless and depressed, and that had increased the hair fall. At times, the self will demand more from the survival mechanism can accomplish. When we are young and healthy, we may be able to fulfill the expectations of the self. However, as we age, it can become harder to meet the challenges the self may throw difficult tasks that seem impossible to complete. In my previous podcast, you heard Amit's story, about trying to please his mother and becoming trapped in her expectations. Our survival mechanisms are programmed to comply with the needs of the master, but sometimes they cannot keep up with the demands of the self. Thus, it feels trapped and strangulated. In trying to find a way out, survival mechanism can inflict disease and psychosomatic illnesses on the body that can include physical injury. Priya had a close relationship with her young nephew who had lived with her since birth. However, when the boy turned 10, his mother had a disagreement with Priya and stopped visiting her. The boy was also prevented from meeting his aunt. This caused Priya a great deal of distress. The situation prolonged for a month until Priya had an accident and suffered a hairline fracture in her left ankle and was unable to walk and was under orthopedic care. Upon hearing the news, the nephew and his mother began visiting Priya and the disagreement was resolved. The survival mechanism is willing to take extreme measures to restore balance, even at the cost of an injury. Though it may appear like an accident, this is how the survival mechanism protects something valuable. Survival mechanism is responsible for regulating our body's functions, but it was the parents who initially protected and ensured the child's safety, which instilled the belief that the self is of utmost importance. And for the body's preservation, it has to meet the expectation of the self. In the future, various personalities become part of the self, and each one plays its role at different times in various ways. For the body's survival, the mechanism has to satisfy them. If not, it senses danger and does its best to restore the well-being and normalcy. It prioritizes well-being depending on what is important for its survival at any given point. When our survival mechanism faces challenges it cannot overcome, it often attempts to use its available survival tools. However, these tools often leads to the same outcome. This creates a loop, and if the solution cannot be found, it can feel frustrated and helpless, which can lead to psychological illnesses. Even if a temporary solution is discovered, it only provides temporary relief, as someone may press the same sensitive trigger in the future, restarting the same loop. The process automatically affects our well-being. Frequently, our survival mechanism operates on the same inborn patterns without updating itself and simply repeats them in hope of resolving the problem. As we age and encounter more complex situations, using the same old formulae won't work. To solve the problem, we need to approach them with emotional neutrality, which is difficult when our survival mechanism is active. A carpenter may construct a strong and beautiful chair, but various natural elements like water, weather, termites, and regular use can eventually harm the chair's quality and durability. Similarly, our bodies can endure numerous obstacles, and our survival mechanism works hard to maintain our health while meeting the expectations of others. However, external factors can still negatively impact our bodies despite our best effort to care for them. Just like any object with a limited lifespan, our bodies also have their own set of limitations. Throughout the series, you may have observed how we are preconditioned since our birth. Our behaviors, belief, communication, and thinking are all pre-programmed in a specific way, and we operate unconsciously from within it. The focus of the series has been on how humans survive, which is different from living. Although many of us believe we are free, the truth is quite opposite. We are living in an illusionary freedom. Throughout the series, I intentionally avoided providing specific solution. My aim was to help you gain a thorough understanding of our birth traps. Secondly, the issue is complex as it involves two mechanisms, the survival mechanism, and the self. Thirdly, there are three distinct survival mechanisms, each with unique survival traits. Fourthly, the survival mechanism comes with pre-programmed survival traits that are dysfunctional in our adult lives and need to be updated. Fifthly, the self has also dumped lots of garbage in the form of conditioning, which must be neutralized. As everyone is unique, I have refrained from offering generalized solution because that would be like aiming in the dark and would not benefit you. However, often listening to the podcast, even if you ask individualized question, you will most certainly get solution and clarity because all answers are within you. Throughout this series, we have discussed two systems that governs our daily lives. However, there is a third system within us that play a crucial role in updating the other two systems and resolving issues. I am currently writing a third book that will delve into the system and provide techniques to neutralize negative emotion and resolve self-sabotages. Often, the self has a strong grip over the survival mechanism, and the third mechanism, inputs, often get sidelined. But if you can understand the working of the survival mechanism, and then you can learn to resolve the issues with the self, and that awareness will help you to tap into the third system. The more you are aware of your systems and understand their working, the more your awareness increases, and that will help you connect with the third system. This series was dedicated to helping you recognize the flaws inherent in our birth and that we often take for granted. By listening to this podcast, you now better understand how these flaws have shaped our lives. With the awareness of your functioning, you have the opportunity to learn more about who you are and redefine your life in the more meaningful way. Suppose you want to understand your illnesses, disease, and personal accidents better. In that case, knowing who and what issues are causing stress, provoking emotion, or self-sabotages in your life is important. The more you fine-tune your abilities to identify the culprit, the better your understanding your internal mechanism work. In conclusion, understanding the survival mechanism and the self is crucial for healthy and well-balanced life. Our body relies on this mechanism for its day-to-day functioning. Let's focus on meeting our body's need without pushing it beyond its limits. Before we conclude the Freedom Laws and Living in an Illusion series, let me briefly summarize it to you. Throughout the series, we have discussed several factors that can limit our freedom. Here is the list of things we have covered in this series. When you are somebody else's goal, you are not free. When your purpose is predefined, it means your choices are restricted. When you are meeting others' expectation, you feel compelled and not truly free. When you are others' property, you have to comply with their demands, which hinders your freedom. You can't be free when others make decisions and you oblige. When others govern your destiny, it is not possible for you to be free. When others installed your survival mechanism which controls you, you can't be free. When the self governs your survival mechanism, can you really be free? Lastly, if your core belief solely revolves around survival, you only thrive to survive and not truly live freely. All of it means we are living in an illusionary freedom. Then, this raises the question of what life really means, whether there is more to it. The answer is undoubtedly yes, and there is more to life. But since we are born out of others' limitations, we carry them unconsciously throughout our lives. Limitations breed limitations, which are part of our destiny, and we want to change it somehow. You have to remember that our destiny is not our creation, but born out of the same limitation, and since birth, they have become part of us. Unless we acknowledge and understand these constraints, we will continue to live in a similar trap. In this series, my aim is to help you understand your co-birth traps. Only by recognizing and comprehending our inborn limitation can we look for possibilities to update and focus on constructive, practical, and pragmatic decision making. The more you do that, the more you take charge of your destiny. Destiny is living now. Do what needs to be done at the moment. Through this podcast series, I aim to shed light on the limitations imposed on us by nature at birth. Even though its initial core purpose was to help us survive in our formative years, we continue to use those unconscious mechanisms to this day. Maybe you were unaware of them, and I thought it was my duty to educate and update you on your inbuilt limitation. I have shared my therapeutic learning and insight so that you could benefit from it. I hope you have found this podcast series beneficial and helpful. I wish you all the best on your journey in life, and I hope you continue to live your life with freedom. To listen to more podcasts and to watch YouTube videos, please feel free to visit my website at www.livingwithfreedom.com. I also have 2 books available for purchase on various platforms: Stop Surviving, Start Living with Freedom, and The Self-Decoded. The better you know who you are and the working of your internal mechanism, the more likely you will experience joy and peace. In the upcoming podcast, you will have an opportunity to learn something new and unique. In the meantime, I encourage you to look for opportunities to express gratitude for everything around you. See you next week.